What's up everybody, Dan here. Thanks so much for joining in for another video. So today I'm going to give you my thoughts on RaceRoom's new tire model update, and I want to apologize that it's taken me so long to get to this. I know I'm late on this, but I was testing the Thrustmaster T248 for the last couple weeks for its review, and I wanted to make sure I got back over to my primary rig with my primary wheelbase before I tested RaceRoom and passed any judgment on these new updates, because I didn't want to accidentally mistake changes in the difference in the wheelbases in the actual changes of the tire models and the physics and all that stuff. So for a couple days now, I've been back on my CSL DD in my primary rig, and I've been testing RaceRoom out, and now I'm ready to tell you what I think about it. So I want to start by saying I was always in the camp that I thought RaceRoom had pretty fantastic physics. I've thought that since the very first time I drove it, and over the years they've done incremental changes that I think have pushed it further into feeling better. That being said though, I'm well aware that they did in fact have a huge problem with traction loss. For whatever reason, and this is why a lot of people don't like playing it or didn't like playing it, traction loss was basically an on-off switch here, and that is a problem because in reality that is not how it works. Traction loss is a progression from having all of your traction to having some traction to having no traction, and then that is where you have problems, go off track and all that kind of stuff. But RaceRoom had this light switch effect that it felt really good until you went over the limit, and then it lost all traction really without any information of letting you know it was going to happen, and you went sliding off the track out into the grass, the dirt, or into the wall or whatever, and that really turned a lot of people off. Now what that caused is RaceRoom was a great game with great physics, but you couldn't really drive cars on the limit, because if you chanced driving on the limit, there was a good chance you were just going to go off the track and mess up. So you know, it's not as fun, at least to me, sim racing if you really can't push the cars to their limits. But I'm very happy to say that this new update has completely changed this. This is not one of their incremental changes that they've done in the past. In my opinion, this is a complete overhaul, and it's an overhaul for the better. Now I will say, and this is the but part of the title of this video, over the years RaceRoom has dwindled down. Unfortunately, it's sad for the developers because it's actually a really good sim, but it has dwindled down to a very small user base, and this is such a drastic change to the tire models and probably some physics changes in there as well. I'm afraid that this may divide the already small community of people that are playing RaceRoom. I hope that doesn't happen, but I can totally see that happening just because this is such a drastic change from where we were before. But with that said, I think it's great, and I'm going to talk about some standout features that I've noticed that I think makes it a lot better. So when I initially started driving it, the very first thing I noticed is what I thought was happening, which is I thought brake lockup was happening much sooner, and that was a little off-putting at first. I was kind of surprised because I thought I was going to have to rethink my braking altogether, because the pressure I could apply before and the braking zones that I could use before, I thought I was going to have to increase those and just change the way I braked. But after testing a bunch of different cars on a bunch of different tracks and just testing and testing and testing, what I realized is that is not what was actually happening. What they've implemented is actually a sound change, or at least it appears to me that they've added a tire sound change to what it was before. In reality, tires actually talk to you in the real world, and they give you indications that you're going to lose grip by making sounds prior to you actually losing grip. And I feel like that is what they have implemented here, because what I'm noticing is I'm hearing some tire chatter, but I'm not actually losing grip. And what it's done is it has allowed me to actually hit corners harder, and it's giving me an indication, just as it does in the real world, of where I need to relax and stop going so hard. Again, it was off-putting initially because I thought the brakes were just locking up, but I had to just get used to the fact that I'm going to hear noise in the corners, which is real. It's just not something that many sims, if any, that I can think of off the top of my head, have done well at all, but it is what happens in the real world. And them implementing this has really helped out in hard cornering and driving a car on the limit. The next thing that you can really tell is that the car is much more lively in cornering. It's moving around. You can feel the fluctuation of the tire underneath the car. RaceRoom used to feel like you were kind of driving a block of wood, unfortunately, but now with this new update, it feels like you're on top of something that is squishy, and tires are squishy, and you can really feel that, which makes a lot more movement mid-corner. And here's another thing that I'm not sure if people will like. To me, it is more realistic for sure, but I can totally see how some people like the point and shoot aspect the way that Race Room used to be. But now there's a lot more going on. You have to make corrections, and it just feels more lively, and the car is moving around a lot more in corners, which means you're going to have to make a lot more small corrections through a corner. The other part of this is it makes trail braking and right foot steering so much more realistic. Let's use the GT3 911 for example. Because it is a rear engine car, it is naturally going to have a lot of understeer and cornering. And so what games typically do is the minute you let off the throttle pedal, the car stops understeering and starts to rotate in. But that's not how it really works in the real world. There's a progression. You can literally steer the car by making minor inputs in throttle. So you can let off a little bit and it will get rid of some of the understeer, or you can let off a lot and it will get rid of all of the understeer. But there's a progression to it, and whatever they've done under the hood here with Race Room has allowed you to literally steer with your right foot, and you can make minor adjustments instead of it being an on-off switch. The same thing here can be said with trail braking. It's the exact same story. Trail braking in other sims, it's basically like an on-off switch, at least in my opinion. But here, depending on how much pressure you apply, changes the weight transition and puts weight on a different location. And whatever they've done under the hood here, you can trail brake much more precisely. Now, I'm not going to even pretend to tell you that I know what they've done as far as mathematically and the physics engine and all that stuff, because that's just not my thing. But what I can tell you as the end user, it feels much more realistic. Trail braking works a lot better. Right foot steering works more realistic, in my opinion, based on my experience in driving cars both on track and just driving spiritedly on the road. This is what they actually do. Same thing with the tire noises I was discussing at the beginning. This is more realistic. Is it totally realistic? No, I'm not sure we'll ever get to the point where any sim is completely realistic, because it's just a sim and you're not actually in a car. But for Race Room, in my opinion, this is a huge leap in the right direction, and I truly hope that it brings aboard a lot more people and people start jumping into the sim, because it is a damn shame that there's such a small user base on the sim, because it is absolutely fantastic. They definitely need to do an update in the graphics department. It is now looking pretty long in the tooth compared to modern games, but I'm hoping they can, and I really appreciate that the developers still continually update and add content and all that good stuff, because it really is a great sim. And I hope that what happens is that more people come to the sim instead of what I think may potentially happen, and that is that it divides the current user base, because it's such a drastic change. But if you've tried this, guys, let us know in the comments what your thoughts are. Are you experiencing the same thing? Do you feel something different? Because of course, the way you perceive this is all going to be subjective. They can do loads of things in the physics model to make changes, but it's the user experience at the end of the day that really matters. So let me know what you guys think. I personally think it's awesome. These are my views. I'll keep you updated as my views change if they do. So that's going to be it for this one, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe, because it really helps the algorithm. And that's going to be it. So I will talk to you guys in the next one. We'll see you later.